500-0518.
Welcome back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So today, the U.S. Supreme Court has taken up the question of whether or not the mandate, and actually it's not the mandate, but it's the subsidies that are attached to Obamacare that are intended to help and to assist people who cannot afford health care. They're taking up the question whether or not the law allows for people in all 50 states to benefit from the subsidy. Now, the reason they're even taking up this question is because of poorly written language in the law, which begs the question of whether or not people in states who have not created their own exchange can benefit from these federal subsidies, or are the subsidies only limited to states that have created their own exchange? The exchange, as you understand, is the system through which people select. They look at their options. They see which plan is going to be best for them. They compare all of the different providers of health care, and then they decide. It's a health care exchange. They had the option. Every state had the option of setting up their own, and if they didn't want to set up their own, then the federal government provided the services for the exchange. And so opponents to Obamacare have found a possible problem in the language of the law, stating that it may not be legal for states who have not created their own exchange to benefit from subsidies that were aimed to help the poorest among us. That's the irony of this, is that the plaintiffs in this case are saying that they did not want assistance from the government to help them get health care. Keep in mind, this subsidy is only for people who cannot afford health care on their own. So this subsidy that they are complaining about, this subsidy is there to help them get health care so that they can get coverage and take care of themselves. So the ruling is going to affect people in nearly 36 states, nearly 36 states, because that many states opted to not create their own exchange. Many of those states opted to not create their own exchange in protest to Obamacare, not on the merits of the law, because the law is based off of Republican ideas. The law was literally built off of the framework, the idea was built off of Obamacare, what we have here in Massachusetts. So it's not on the merits of the law. They're opposing it because it came from President Obama, because the law itself is built off of ideas from the Heritage Foundation, which is an extremely conservative think tank. And so it's never about the merits. It's all about opposition to President Obama. Just to make that clear. So now their opposition for President Obama, their disdain for President Obama is so absolute that they are willing to let 8 million people lose health care. Of those 8 million people that will lose health care, 10,000 a year are projected to die from sicknesses that they could have gotten treatment for. So 10,000 people a year are needlessly going to die because they don't have this coverage. Another thing that you have to see through the message is that these are the poorest people. These states that protested against President Obama and stood in opposition to Obamacare, that did not create their own statewide exchanges, they were generally Republican states, led by Republican governors. And if you look at the median income of these states, they are the poorest of all states in the United States. And so you have the situation now where the poorest people in the poorest states, which just so happen, well, not just so happen, but by design are Republican states, they are now poised to lose their benefits because they're going to lose the subsidies because they're poor and they need the subsidies. That's the most absurd thing about it. These people are so opposed to President Obama that they are willing to lose a benefit that would help them live. We're not talking about SNAP benefits. We're not talking about food stamps. I mean, we already talked about Owsley, Kentucky, and how they're 95% white, 99% Republican, and they consume the most food stamps across the United States. And they are 99% Republican. So they are every time they vote in their administration there in Owsley County, Kentucky, they are taking food out of the mouths of their children. It's not just food this time, though. We're talking about people dying. 10,000 people, and those 10,000 people, those 8 million people who are going to lose benefits, 10,000 that will potentially die every year because they don't have health coverage, are going to be disproportionately concentrated in the poorest states, which are Republican states. Does anybody else see the sad irony? I want to laugh about it because they're shooting themselves in the foot. They are killing themselves for their hate of President Obama. And I wonder if the citizens of those states really understand what's going on. Are they just so in love with their Republican governors and so opposed to President Obama that they don't realize that they are going to lose their benefits? Do they realize that? For example, Louisiana, Bobby Jindal, second to the poorest state in the nation as far as median income. Second only to Mississippi, which is also a Republican-led state. Bobby Jindal, governor of Louisiana, says that this subsidy going away is going to be a great thing because without the subsidy, there is no mandate. And without the mandate, that's essentially a tax break. And all we need are tax breaks. That's all Republicans believe in are tax breaks, no matter what the cost of the tax break. That's what Bobby Jindal, he believes that it's a great thing. The subtext of his comment is, 250,000 people in Louisiana, according to Think Progress, 250,000 people are going to lose their health benefit. 250,000 citizens of Louisiana are going to lose their health benefit because of their opposition to President Obama. You've got to be careful what state you live in. You absolutely have to be careful what state you live in because some of these people, some of these governors, some of these governments hate the president so much that they will gladly sacrifice you on the altar of opposition. They will gladly see 10,000 people die every year just for the sake of opposing Obamacare. They will gladly see 8 million people lose their health benefits from a Republican idea because President Obama instituted that idea. And so it's not so much, and that's the sad thing about it, people. Listen, it's not going to be these liberal states that are suffering from it. It's a possibility now. Let me take a sidestep here. It's a possibility that we will all suffer from it if Obamacare falls apart. And that's what they want. They hope that by getting rid of the subsidies, that essentially gets rid of the mandate. And without the mandate, the system caves in under itself and no one can get health care. That's really the victory that the Republicans are going for. Their victory, their crown jewel achievement would be to see millions of Americans lose health care, not because they disagree with the policy, but because they disagree with the president. That should tell you everything you need to know about the Republican Party.